Welcome back, everybody. I'm joined on the podium by those shoes and the woman who wore them, Emma Currie. We're here for a quick 10-minute chat. Again, if there are questions from the audience, we'd love to hear a few questions. And as you saw, Emma did that wonderful opening monologue entitled Gail's Shoes to start us off at the conference, and then we wanted to take the opportunity of having a chat with Emma, and in particular about the process that you follow after you've done that monologue when you're working with clients. Do you want to kick us off by telling us a bit about that process, and then maybe there'll be a few questions?
Sure. Gail's Shoes is the stimulus to a much bigger conversation that happens immediately afterwards. So typically I would be delivering in a porter cabin somewhere on some miserable site on a cold January morning and wherever. And so what it does at the beginning of the session is it sets the tone that this session's going to be a bit different, and that they can't be just getting into their comfort zone. So also working with the front line, so it's quite a different beginning for them. And then I ask them afterwards to just, in the moment it takes for me to quickly get my clothes back on. I'm glad you did that. Yeah. I leave them with 3 questions, which is, who would look after you if this happened to you? What would they be giving up? And what would you miss most about the life you have now? So forcing them to make that, what Shakespeare used to call imaginary puissance, where you have to sort of picture yourself in this fictitious situation.
Yes, yeah.
And then I come back.
And Gail, of course, she's very recognizable. You can connect with her. You can recognize her story. She's playful. She's blunt. She's, she's like any woman you might meet. So I think I made an immediate connection. I was going, I know people like this. People as playful and as wonderful
that was just last
as
night.
this. Yeah. Are the cameras off? Right. Well, thanks very much, Emma. Good. What else? Anything else?
So then I get them to come up with an idea for a film, because I make films as well. So I say, I'm going to use some of the knowledge that's in the room, and I want you to develop an idea around a likely accident to happen in your work environment, and the characters involved, and how the accident came about, the root causes. Right. And so they start scenario planning, and you very quickly, in their little groups, you get the most likely accidents to happen on site and the behaviours that go with them, and exactly an account of these potential film ideas. But because the questions being asked in a different way, come up with a film rather than let's have a toolbox talk or something that's predictable and corporate. That different language in the question and in the setting of the task means that they're thinking out of the box, and they don't know that they're talking about their own culture.
Yes.
So they're
and again, making it very real and not just imaginary or conceptual, but very, very real.
Yeah.
Are there questions? You have a question? Thank you, sir.
Great idea, but can you carry on? So it sounds like you asked them to come up with a scenario for a film, and then you eventually turn the spotlight back on them, I'm guessing, and say, the film that we're not actually going to make is going to happen this afternoon or not. So is that how you use this?
Well, what I do is I say I want to go armed with the positive ending of your film, so it's not just a disaster story, because most test audiences prefer the happy ending. So I ask them to then, by changing the behavior of just one character in their stories, to change the outcome of the film. So then I point out that, right, we've got the wisdom of foresight, you've got all that intuition, you know what could go wrong, and you know the behaviors that go wrong, and you know how to change those behaviors. So what are the barriers in the organization to making that caring culture possible? So then we drill down a bit into the central character, and I get them to create an everyman figure. And that allows them to sort of, again, using fiction to kind of create this generic person that's not themselves, but is very like themselves. And they can have a conversation around the needs of that person, what that character they've made hates, what switches them off about safety, what has become a blocker for them to really fessing up to what's really going on. So you get that real engagement piece, and then I take those actions back into the business and get management to commit to doing something or looking into these themes that are emerging. So it's a great way to get people talking.
Like you say, you've abstracted them away from themselves.
Yeah, that's right. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else? Yes, please.
Yeah. Can you elaborate a bit on the themes that you might have come across? I mean, there might be common threads.
I think the most common thing that thwarts great safety culture is the ridiculous abundance of procedures, the sort of tick box exercise that has to be carried out before you can even move. And everyone's afraid to complain about that stuff because, of course, all the legal implications are so huge. So, there's no time for them to think and be, and things that used to work really well, like a bacon roll session on a Friday morning, which seems like a luxury. Actually, those moments were culturally really important so that people could casually exchange information in a non-corporate language with each other. And that was where the good communication happened. So the loss of something like that would be complained about, as well as safety glasses. God, people go on about their steamed up safety glasses, of course.
Taff, you had a question?
Yeah, thank you. You work across different sectors now, Emma. Do you notice any abiding characteristic or difference between, let's say, the offshore sector and the construction sector in the way that your audience reacts to you and what their issues are?
Essentially, it's quite often the same guys, especially since oil industry's been quieter, they've gone to construction. So they are all, I think they're all the same kind of frontline people. Some of them have more of a sort of sense of being better qualified because they've been through this, the oil industry or something, and therefore they know a bit more about the importance of safety, a zero tolerance attitude. Whereas the kind of more diamonds in the rough in construction, in small companies. I notice actually in something like the drinks industry, people like Diageo, that what really works well for Diageo is that people stay in the same job for 30 years and there's a family there. They all know each other, there's a banter. So they're all very happy, although they complain that they're the 20% of the organization that are actually doing the work, and 80% that is corporate is blocking them, preventing them from actually doing what they need to do. But yeah, that nice family vibe in drinks and food and drinks manufacturing is key.
Okay, then.
You mentioned something about the accretion of procedures and so on that starts to crush down on people in our industry. Do you find that as a characteristic of other sectors, or do you find that a special complaint in our business?
No, I find it a character across all industries. I think people don't realize, I think they think it's enough the small companies that are trying to raise their game in terms of health and safety think it's enough to have the expensive policy in the top drawer and to tick the boxes, and what they don't realize is actually what matters is how people speak to each other, and evidence of that good culture is going to play more in their favor to mitigate any sort of legalities around an accident than the expensive insurance policy. So I think that naivety is probably what I notice more in industries that aren't oil, but oil understands the importance of getting the culture right.
Great. All right, I wish we had longer, but we don't. We're going to move on to our next presenter. I'm sure people will have questions for you and run up and ask you them on the breaks and stuff. And for now, please, your appreciation for Emma Currie.
Thanks very much.